Hello everyone. Um, it's 1:37 a.m. British Standard Time. This isn't unusual for me. I've long been a bit of a night owl. I find my mind is active late. That's been the way for a long time. Um, it's not really ideal. It's not the most healthy structure to be in. But that's the way it is. So I'm awake. I've been reading newspaper. But not really doing anything else, so I thought this video would be productive. Um, and I want to talk about opinions. I want to talk about what we do with them. So it's occurred to me, not just now. I mean, it's a thought that in life, you encounter all sorts of situations. You encounter all sorts of scenarios, events, stories in public discourse, in the news, basically. Um, Now, obviously, some people are a lot more engaged than others. Not everyone in my circle is as political as I am, far from it. And how political am I? Pretty political, certainly above average. I think there is politics in my blood, but even I am not, constantly every day engaging sort of on policy areas and so on what the government's doing about X, Y, and Z. Not every issue. I mean, it's a Conservative Party conference right now. This particular government, I think, is in a very bad way. I think that mini budget might have been Liz Truss's poll tax moment, but we'll see. Um, so, I could microanalyze that and look at each and every policy. But here's the thing, even if you are engaged in politics, even if you are, um, engaged in what's going on in the world, it's impossible to follow everything at once. So sometimes subscribers have asked me, Nathan, what's your thoughts on this or what's your thoughts on that? Those are totally legitimate questions, but if I take the response that I'm not really sure or I haven't thought about it, it's not that I'm apathetic. It's just that you literally can't digest everything at once. Now, top journalists, well, any journalist really, and I've trained as a journalist, when they're covering a particular story, they need to make themselves very familiar with that story. Or rather, if they're reporting the story, background to it. As a freelancer, the chances are I'll be doing follow ups rather than breaking news. So my job would be to get as much information as I can. Obviously, make sure it's as accurate as possible, check my sources, and so on. But that would be my job, to be familiar with that particular subject as much as possible. Some parts of the world it is difficult for reporters because of restrictive governments. Difficult to get all information at once. I digress. Um, Rather, I want to look a bit more broadly about life. Even if you're someone who, like me, is political, is opinionated, and you believe in standing up for your conviction, there are times, when it really is best just to let it go. Now, what I mean by this is certainly don't be apathetic, but if you engage regularly on social media, you'll find a whole host of opinions. Some of them you'll agree with, some of them you'll disagree with, unless, of course, you have an echo chamber. I don't have an echo chamber. In the sense that I subject myself to a wide range of opinions. What I don't do is hang around. This is what I don't understand about trolling behavior. People who hang around um channels or sites and so on that they don't agree with. It's one thing. Let's use Facebook for example. It's one thing liking a particular page in order to be able to comment on it because you want to take issue with a particular position they have. I actually think that's legitimate on the grounds that if you have a company or a public figure or someone else who has come out with a position and it's in the public domain, I think so long as it's not threatening, people should have a right to have a view on it. That video I made yesterday actually about that foundation trust in London. It was the London actually. I mentioned it was Devon. It was in London. I noticed that on their website they have this pathetic little list of do not, if you're contacting us, do not leave vexatious comments, whatever that means. I'm guessing they mean angry comments from members of the public, but that makes me think they can't handle criticism. Now, I understand they have to safeguard staff. They can't just let anyone send abusive messages. But this is the same trust that is engaging in racist policy. That's what it is. It's racist policy. And that nurse is involved in the legal case against them. So they think they are being progressive by putting out this toxic policy, but they obviously don't want to be scrutinized over it. So that's so unfortunate when you get institutions, bodies, companies, individuals who can basically give but can't take. That's unfortunate. But in society, in life, you can't please everyone all the time, and you also cannot fight every battle, right? So I think there are times it's practical. Just accept that some battles just aren't worth having. I mean, you have to ask yourself, okay, I feel strongly about this subject, but is my leaving a comment or me remonstrating with this person, is it really going to make a difference? Going to get them to see it in a different light? Because if we're being honest, and I'm guilty of this, I'm certainly guilty of this, sometimes it's a bit about ego, whereby we just want our voice heard, right? I'm not going to lie, I certainly want to put my take into something. But am I always doing it with the premise of I hope I change minds? Not necessarily. Sometimes I just want to vent because I feel that's ridiculous, that's outrageous. This is what I think about it. And that's fine, it's legitimate, but um, I'm being honest about that. And I think if most people were honest about it, they just want to have their opinion, which is our right in a free society. But how many times do we leave an opinion in the hope of actually changing others' minds or influencing for the better? Maybe that's something we should focus more on. Um, with this channel, so of course, this all comes into my channel as well. What I have always sought to do is definitely I use it as a platform to opine. I'm not sure how that word's pronounced, but I have always used it for that. I'm grateful for the platform. I've always used this as a way to say this is what I feel about this issue, and I do it with the sort of idea that there will be other people out there who maybe agree with what I'm saying, resonate with something I'm saying, and maybe they want to add some thoughts to it, which is what the comment section's for. Um, I always encourage my subscribers, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this. Um, Sometimes I come across comments and I think, yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that before, and that's also true of live streams, which is why I like live streams. And I've been doing them more regularly recently. Um, but that's what I've always tried to do with the channel. What I've never done is said, I'm right about everything. You must agree with me. If I feel strongly about something, I'm not going to, it's ridiculous to be neutral on everything. You can't. You just can't. There's a lot of subjects I'm not neutral on, and I'm not going to pretend that I am. I don't equivocate on something like Russia and Ukraine, for example. I don't equivocate on crime and justice. Those are things I feel very strongly about. So I'm not going to say I hold this opinion in the same value as that opinion because I don't. And I think the statement respect all opinions is a little bit naive on the grounds that what you could do is respect the right for people to have an opinion. That doesn't mean you have to respect the opinion itself. Case in point, Roger Waters. I recently mentioned this guy of Pink Floyd. He got in hot water for his comments on the Ukraine war, and he's had his concerts cancelled some venues in Poland. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I agree with cancel culture, but I understand the backlash, and I've no respect for Waters' positions. But he has a right to be an idiot. He has a right to be a Putin stooge, and if he's not breaking any laws, then he can have whatever opinion he wants. Um, but if you're going to come out with controversial views, then there will be a backlash. I think one of the biggest problems in Western society is people aren't content just to say that person's full of it. I disagree with them, they're wrong. I think one of the problems is people actually actively go out of their way to destroy someone. Now, in the case of Roger Waters, there's a bit of context there because Poland is bordering Ukraine. There's many Ukrainian refugees in Poland, so it's quite raw. It's quite right there. I'm still not sure if necessarily it's cancelling his concert's the best thing. People have the right to decide whether they go to the concerts or not. But moving more west, I mean, we know the culture wars are very, very divisive. People have strong views on this. What I find unfortunate, though, and although both sides are guilty of it, I do think the left is more prone to cancel culture. I mean, we've seen this many times where you get someone accused of something, a public figure is accused of something, sometimes with very little basis in actual fact. Now, if this has anything to do with race, especially if they're white, then you get this situation where it absolutely explodes out of all proportion. I mentioned the experience of the young girl in a school yesterday in that video. She wasn't a public figure. Her life was destroyed. But when someone's a public figure, that it's elevated even more because they're already a public figure, so they're absolutely vilified in the public domain. Um, and I think that's abhorrent. This is not to say if someone comes out with clearly offensive or clearly idiotic or ignorant comments, I think they should get scrutinized. They should get criticized. But I think it's possible to criticize someone without threatening legal action. I one of the most underhand approaches I think people could take is to kind of get legislation involved when it's not necessary. So, for example, this is something I'm concerned about with social media platforms. I think there's too many people, frankly, um, run to report others just because they don't like their opinion, or you get a situation where police forces in England and Wales. I'm not so sure if this is such a problem in Scotland and Northern Ireland. It probably is, but certainly in England and Wales, you get police forces wasting their time policing Twitter feuds and online disagreements. Now, unless there's threats involved, or unless you get like merciless bullying of an individual, but even then, most social media sites have a blocking mechanism. I'm just very wary of the police being involved in those matters, especially if there hasn't actually been a crime committed. What is utterly absurd is when you get the police turning up to someone's house and reporting a non-crime hate incident. My question is, why the hell are the police there if it's a non-crime? I think, the police do themselves no favors with this. They might say, oh, we're just following up on legislation. No, I don't really buy it. Because the same police will claim they don't have the resources to attend a burglary. So the police themselves, I think, could do a lot more to improve public confidence. It's no good just blaming everything on the government. They could do a lot more themselves to improve public confidence. But I digress. Okay, so what am I driving at with all of this? In life, you're going to come across all sorts of opinions, viewpoints, situations. Some of them, are more raw. So we've heard this term triggering. I don't totally dismiss it because if someone's been through a traumatic experience, it's totally understandable that a particular story or a particular thing might literally trigger bad memories, or in some cases, diagnosed PTSD. So I don't dismiss that offhand. Um, you get the extreme where you get this hypersensitive woke culture where people are basically looking for reasons to be offended, and that's pathetic. where they're counting microaggressions or trying to read something sinister where it isn't there. And I think that's a very sad thing, where you get it's like what Meghan Markle was coming out with in her our archetype podcast, and her guests. They're just trying to intercept racism where really we're talking about things that are a bit out of date. Or in some cases, I mean, she was describing it to Austin Powers. Like I say, Austin Powers parodies everyone. I'm going to wrap up this video soon, but we live in a world where there is very real oppression. So people who weaponize sensitivity, it's utterly pathetic. Weaponize it in the sense of attaching these loaded terms. Racism is probably the most insidious, but you get misogyny, you get Islamophobia, you get all these tags put onto something. Sometimes it might be appropriate. More often than not, it isn't. And the byproduct of that, there's a real world effect, in which case you get companies defamed and individuals vilified, often unfairly. I'm not saying it's always unfair. Sometimes the criticism is just, but not always. And then you get this like mob justice where people think that because they're shouting the loudest, then only their view matters. If you get someone who's deliberately, doing something so outrageous that they know it's going to provoke public taste. I mean, that girl who put the faces over the Captain Tom Memorial, that is going to anger the public because it is a crass, disrespectful thing to do, and it achieves nothing. Now, no one would have the right to physically attack her. That would be elevating it. No one would have that right. But can't now complain about being, called names online because if you're going to do stupid things, there's going to be, it's human nature, there's going to be consequences of that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. But I think what I would go away with, what the sort of departing thought here is never ever apologize for standing up for your conviction. Um, but also accept that not every battle is worth fighting. We cannot have a position on everything. And sometimes, life is relatively short. It's not always worth it. Sometimes you just have to sit back, relax, and just enjoy life. Take things easy. Um, I'm a political person. That doesn't mean I'm constantly, weighing up the heavy things in life. Sometimes I like to take it easy. I like to dumb things down a bit even because it's healthy, I think. To not always look at the dark, serious things in life. From a journalist perspective, it's interesting and I think they're very important, but I can't spend all my time thinking about human rights abuses or heavy political issues. As much as those things matter to me, it's you have to make your life as colorful, as diverse as possible. If I could put it that way. Um, yeah. Hope some of these thoughts resonate with people. Let me know your thoughts, how you would look at this, and yeah, thanks for logging in as always, people.